Gestalt, the theory that states that we perceive the whole as more than just the sum of its parts, describes one of the ways in which our minds operate efficiently. At its most basic, this phenomenon explains how our brains make sense of our world. For example, our eyes take in the stimulus of this picture as only a series of shapes and shades. It is our minds that interpret this information as a bicycle. In other words, more than just the sum of its parts. Gestalt also explains the way in which our brain infers additional information based on the limited information it has at its disposal. In this example, our brains perceive a square and four circles, even though parts of those shapes are obscured. Furthermore, we can infer that the square is in front of the circles based on the parts that our brain tells us are missing. Taking the idea of Gestalt a step further, our brains interpret the proximity of shapes or groups of shapes as significant as well. The shapes that made up the bicycle were all connected and therefore all parts of the whole, whereas if we spread them out along the page, our brain tells us they no longer make up a bicycle. In this same way, people stand close to each other are perceived as a group, whereas those standing apart are not, or at least are less likely to be seen as such. An understanding of Gestalt is important in visual communication because once we understand how the mind will interpret visual stimulus, we can figure out which methods and techniques will have the biggest impact on our audience. In this example, our attention is automatically drawn to the one difference within the picture precisely because it is different and therefore stands out. Our brains automatically look for clues that will help us interpret what information is significant out of the abundance of stimulus it is receiving via the senses, in this case via the eyes, so that it can properly make assessments. Designing logos, websites, etc. with this in mind will help ensure that we have the greatest possible impact on our audience.